In this video, I'm going to tell you about the Necronomicon Gamebook series. It's a short series, 2 volumes of short books. The first one, Dagon, is 80 sections plus a section at the end about the Dreamlands, and this one is 110 plus again a section at the end about the Dreamlands. It's also longer, this one, because the font is smaller. There's just a lot more text. In any case, short game books, originally written in Italian by Valentino Sergi, but also there is an English edition available, and that's why I thought I would film this video in English, although I read them in Italian, because this way a wider audience may become aware of, hey, there are game books with a Lovecraftian theme, because we know that Lovecraft is just the bacon of gaming, the bacon of literature. It just makes everything better. What can I say? That's the way it is. And of course, Lovecraft is the main source and inspiration for the first volume, Dagon, and is a main source also for Carcosa, but there are clearly also elements from Chambers here, The King in Yellow and Carcosa itself, which Lovecraft borrowed, but not as much as a lot of people seem to think. These 2 books are connected, so it's better if you read Dagon first and this one next. You don't strictly need Dagon to understand Carcosa, but it's better that way, then you get the full storyline. Also, you may be able to find something important here that you're able to bring with you in the second book, and maybe, again, not fundamental, but useful to have. These are game books, not just in the sense that there is a branching story, which, although that is the main thing that you do, read text and choose branching reading paths, but it also has game mechanics, so you're going to keep inventory, you're going to keep track of how much life you have, how much sanity you have. We're in Lovecraftian themes, so that's also important. There's a simple combat system, which reminded me of Lone Wolf games, in the sense that it's based on a differential between your power and that of the opponent, and then you generate a random number and you check how many life points either or both of you lost. And again, it's a very simple, very lean game system. It is still these are still game books that are, again, mainly about the story. And what is interesting is really they're not loosely inspired, they're not loosely based. The approach is really that of a patchwork. It is a narrative quilt. They're just chunks of the original stories that have been combined together, incidentally, in ways that do not necessarily comport with the original sources. So you have a character who lives in Vermont and is featured in Vermont, and now we see the character somewhere else. But many of the things relating to that character are connected. You start in a situation from one story, then you get a situation from another. So it's an interesting approach because it's both very faithful. You can really see that there was homework that was done here. At the same time, well, there is a variation on the way in which these elements are juxtaposed, really not so much like commingled or blended together, just one next to each other. Again, the image of the quilt somehow, to me, it's a good depiction of what happens here. I'm not going to tell you much about the plots because I don't want to give you spoilers, and if you hear me so far, you kind of know what to expect, because if you know the source text, you know what to expect, and the source texts are also explained, oh, that story, so you kind of know what to expect. But when stuff happens in Kingsport, is that a spoiler? Probably not, like almost 100 years later and the original story was written. So, Dagon, you're gonna try to survive, figure out mysteries, and do things in the world of H.P. Lovecraft related to Kingsport, and Dagon stuff, and another story here. I'm not gonna tell you. And here, again, more stuff from other H.P. Lovecraft stories, plus elements from Chambers, such as the Repairer of Reputations. So, they're good. They're fun. They're unusually short, of course, which is not necessarily a bad thing. One thing that actually happened now that in the 21st century, game books have evolved to also include adult readers. In the 1980s, it was just the young ones. Now that they have evolved, very often they're very long, they're very epic. 800 paragraphs, 1,000 paragraphs is not that uncommon, which has merit and is fun. But you know what? From time to time, I also don't mind an adult game book in tone, in topic, in complexity. And there are some fairly, again, dark tones. There are some sexual elements there. These are game books for adults, but I don't mind the fact that I can pick one up and read it in an evening, and then if it's a long evening, then I start the other one, or maybe depending on how long your evenings are, you get both in an evening. Read one, save the other for the following day. Read one during a lunch break. And if you miss your spot, it's not that hard to retrieve it as opposed to a thick book. I think these are probably some of the shortest game books, the shortest game books for adults that I've ever read. And it turns out I enjoyed them. I enjoyed that formula a lot. I enjoyed that perspective a lot. I think it's nice to balance and have a little have more options when it comes to your reading time and reading things. They're very well produced in terms of the art. This is definitely professional production when it comes to the covers, but also show you some of the art inside. The paper is nice and glossy. So some pretty again dark, very atmospheric art that definitely matches the theme. Both when it comes to the full page illustrations and some of these other smaller illustrations. So definitely it's artistically pleasant. And there's a consistency in the art, of course, the famous scene. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's a consistency that, of course, helps set the tone of the story and create a nice sense of space, which of course helps with the immersion. Overall, I had a good time reading Carcosa, followed by Dagon. Is the other way around. Reading Dagon, followed by Carcosa. They form a nice little storyline. It's just, yes, more H.P. Lovecraft. I don't know about you, but I'm not tired yet. Maybe some of you are getting some Lovecraft fatigue, but I'm not. Just more Lovecraft-based stuff, game-based, game perspectives about Lovecrafts. I'm interested. So, I had a good time reading Dagon and Carcosa. I think they're really good game books.